Hello, Chezi. How's it going?
Thank God, sir. How are you? How was your Passover?
Passover was good. Passover
Passover.
was nice. It was
That's
good.
nice.
Time to chill and be with people. We stayed around here, so we
You
didn't go
stayed
on any
here.
crazy vacations or
Right. Where
visits.
did you go?
With just friends for the first night and
Very
the second
nice.
night at our place.
Second night. Right. I remember that. I did that once in my life, and I was like, "This is insanity." Um,
I
there's
was
also like an
your
alternate ending,
only
right?
night.
What?
Huh? I was your one and only night.
Nice. Even though I can no longer, I can no longer have it like for many years I had it with my in-laws. Originally because every time they would come visit from the States, I felt like, that's the right thing to do since I get to see my parents that live here all the time.
Hmm.
But generally, we've been going to them. However, just my sister-in-law and her kids are much younger, and I needed to really be like, I just no longer could keep it like, I want to focus on my kids, I guess, in that sense. And I need like a Seder that's going to be like a little more of an extravaganza. And by them, I need to sort of usually do it like a little quicker.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think next year we're going to transition into maybe I'll go with my brother, but I need more questions. I want also my kids to have the time to speak and share their own ideas and thoughts. And currently, right now, it's more difficult to do when there's like like multiple babies crying. So
Yeah.
um, right, but it's really it's definitely a night that's child focused, right? Like the four children. So like it really people, even if you have younger kids, like people should feel very comfortable to even have a short seder. Just make sure your kids are really getting out of it, like the most out of it, because the experience is ultimately for them.
Yeah, it's tough because it's late in Israel. They probably the same issue.
It's like,
Yeah, so it's kind of figuring out
yeah,
how to operate that as well.
my mom was very into like us taking naps. Like my father, that like every kid had to sit around the table, and throughout the week before, you'd have to like sit next to my dad and like write out an idea. And like my dad would there like to help you. It gives you source books, but like also there to help you. And
Mhm.
then the day of, like we would have to take a nap to make sure you're fresh.
Right. I mean, yeah. That's straight out of the Rambam, right? Tell you
Right.
to do that.
I
Um,
will just mention an idea. Maybe I mentioned it maybe I mentioned it already on to you before, but we ask why do why do we open up the door for Elijah? Sorry, why do we open up the door? Right, and the answer generally is like we open it up for Elijah. Right, that Elijah has come to see, and we come to open up the door. But there is a different opinion. It's a minority opinion, but there's an opinion that comes and says that you're opening up the door to remind yourself that redemption and like moving to Israel and going out and changing your destiny is like all you need to do is get up and do it, basically, like it's at hand.
mhm.
So um, a reminder to all,
Yeah.
never too late to come home. um, all right. uh, I
Yeah.
see someone's asking over here for a link, but I did share a link. The link is here. Okay, the summary transcript. I think we'll see. I haven't done it yet, but I might start playing with like Notebook LM a little more and seeing how what kind of things it does more. Okay, take it away.
Okay. So we are.
Well,
Uh,
this was the ninth blessing, right? Berkat Hashanim, the blessing of the years, and this is just a recap of what we did 2 weeks ago,
mhm.
and we'll move on with blessing
Right.
10, Ingathering of the Exiles.
Right. So we're reviewing the last one. Baruch Adonai, Hashem Elokeinu et hashana הזאת לטובה. We are not asking for a good year, but for a year whose produce and results are aligned with goodness. right? The fact that the focus is not survival, but how success is used. Right, which is I guess part of the way that we need the way we need to frame it, as I see in a lot of places where it talks about. So you're asking God for, like, it feels like in this very spiritual, deep moment. Are you at all you're asking is for material wealth? It's like, is that? But the idea is the framing of you being able to understand what would that be used for. Okay, so that's just connect to that. What the blessing is about: livelihood, parnasa, rain.
Again, rain also obviously. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, rain represents a connection between heaven and earth, a divine influence entering physical reality. So
I mean, it's true also today, but definitely at that time, also what it symbolized, like its connection to, like, obviously their livelihood was immense. So like on multiple levels,
right.
it was
Yeah, I mean, it was part of the experience. It was also used as an analogy by the sages
correct.
for a lot of things. Okay? It's placed in the Amidah, the place of this blessing. The sequence that we have is understanding dat, tshuva, dat, tshuva, forgiveness, slicha,
Right.
healing,
Refuah.
and redemption,
We have Geulah, and this is livelihood now.
livelihood. So material stability comes after spiritual alignment, but it is also necessary for higher growth.
Correct.
Okay, right? Yeah. It kind of reminds me of what is worthier, the mitzvah or the study of Torah, right? Kind of like a connects here. I feel like. Core theme: abundance, bracha, increase, expansion,
And also Shefa.
shifa, right? Increase, expansion, protection of what one has. The Torah does not reject wealth; it guides and structures it.
So yeah, this seems like it would be so it's like, to my understanding, and this might be a little tangential, but I think my understanding is that the Jewish perspective on selfishness is not you should be completely altruistic or completely selfish, but you should take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. Right? This is Hillel's formulation. If I'm not for myself, then who is for me? And if I'm only for myself, then what's the point, or something like that. Isn't that correct?
Right, which is to be being mature enough to understand, being able to receive in order so you could give.
Yeah, we covered it in Shmona Plakim. The Rambam
Right.
also talks about it. The middle path, right?
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons I don't like leftist Jews who argue we should be against capitalism based on the Torah, because basically, while there are problems with free market capitalism, generally speaking, capitalism produces more wealth than socialism due to various things. But and I won't derail it with that. But I just
Judaism takes on the best system. Like if communism would have worked, then that's what would happen. But Judaism's not married to one system, like you said. It's there for the system that allows it to benefit most people.
yes, and that I'm just saying that happens to be capitalism.
Yeah, correct. That happens to be capitalism right now.
Yeah.
All right, so that we also say letova inside the bracha. We say for the good, right? Because wealth can lead to arrogance and self-sufficiency, right? Like I'm saying, like we want to make sure that this wealth that we're getting is also proper wealth, balanced good that we want as well. Like we said, it could be like me and my might in my own hand, right? Which is always a problem. I'm going to take on right now doing these things and I'm being very successful. I end up taking the credit for myself, not remembering, of course, that while we do have choice and action in this world, our power comes from God. We ask not just for success, but for ethical, God-aware success, right? That's what we want in our life. Balance, right? The Ramchal we talked about brings in two dangers. Poverty leads to depression. Wealth leads to arrogance. You want to be in this middle zone. The ideal, right, of balance is sufficiency enough to live clearly and properly. Inner freedom, or Nachman, we brought up over here. Fear of poverty can dominate life. You could scroll down.
Wait, I lost.
Okay.
Whoop. when fear controls you, you lose your freedom. Parnasa must remain in proportion, right?
Well-
like your sustenance, wealth. Is it a tool or a master? Betzela chokhmah, betzela kesef. We mentioned the verse over here, right? Wealth can support life, but it could also replace meaning as well. This is like, it's
Interesting.
really,
I don't remember this.
sorry?
I don't remember this. Betzela chokhmah, betzela kesef.
Yeah, where is it quoted though? Betzela chokhmah. I don't even know if I mentioned the quote. I probably just said that is a pasuk.
Is that a real quote? We should probably check.
Yeah. I'm just not remembering where it is. It's
Proverbs.
I want to say it's Kohelet, yeah, Shlomo.
Kohelet.
כי בצל החוכמה, בצל הכסף, ויתרון דעת החוכמה, תחיה בעליה. I'm saying, like, you want it, you Yosef, it's good to have you over here, right? It's obviously, it really depends how we use these powers, how we use these tools ultimately, right? Is it a tool that's something that ultimately takes over me as well? Right. The issue is not money, but its role in your life, right? True wealth is uashir hasamech bechakor, who is healthy, real wealth, inner satisfaction, not excess, right? Beyond supply, right? Satisfaction, v'shavat olam kulo b'tuvrach, right? Like in benching, when we play, when we bless after we eat, not just having, but feeling full and content, right? Which is obviously everyone's always chasing that high, chasing that new thing.
I was just gonna say,
what do they say? That happiness, like once you are keeping the tax man at bay, at that point, like more money doesn't actually give you any more happiness. So you want to be able to live this balanced life that you have what you need. Universal vision, right? Rain sustains the entire world. Jewish prayer includes all humanity, right? We have blessings that were more specific to us. Here we are saying that we want to make sure it's covering everyone. A vision of global responsibility. Israel's role, Yosef, Hamashbir l'chol aretz, right? He sustained everyone. Israel is meant to provide, sustain, and contribute to the world. I mentioned this on a very long stream that Jacob and I had yesterday, but and he was getting like political about Greater Israel. But I said how Greater Israel for me doesn't mean that Israel has to be in control of all these lands. Rather, Israel needs to act like a superpower that could affect all that region, right? Which allows for to sustain and provide and contribute to the world. And like I'm saying, that's in our region, and that's I see as being like Greater Israel is like when we can have our greatest effect on the world. Not that we have to own more land. It's good to have you with us, sir. I hope you and the family are well. Where were we at? Material world enables spiritual life. Torah requires an economy, stability, infrastructure, right? Without physical grounding, no harchavat dat, no mental, spiritual expansion, right? I obviously, and I don't know, I think we spoke about it then, but how the Romans, they get called out, right? Like, do we have a place in the world to come? Like, we built infrastructure, we built roads, and they get called out for that in the Gemara. Mm-hmm. But obviously, in the end, we do say that they have a place in the world to come, because obviously you need that infrastructure, right? I won't be able to get to the temple if the asphalt on the road is not done well, and if I don't have good Wi-Fi. How will the high priest know it's his turn if he does not get a message on his phone? Please God, right? Redemption begins with the physical, right? Land flourishing, economic strength, right? As we're and the Chaketz Megulem Ezer, Rashi talks about how when the land starts bearing fruit, this is your material growth is the beginning of redemption. Obviously, I could point to many things in Israel that point to that. Even in this crazy situation we are right now, Israel's GDP, and like I'm just saying, it's really a marvel. That's obviously there's plenty of interior things we need to take care of. The final takeaway, Birkat Hashanim, right? It's not about the Benjamins. It is about building a stable world, creating a space for Torah, aligning success with goodness, and preparing for redemption. And the orner, right, is parnasah. Then once I have that income, right, once the taxman is paid, then there's stability. Once there's stability, I could stop worrying about the rat race. I could work on my spiritual growth. Once I work on my spiritual growth, once we all work on our spiritual growth, we could actually bring redemption, right? So when we talk about, and Kirk earlier mentioned that that with capitalism, that classic saying about that it rises all ships, right? Like that is in a sense where it's like spiritual growth as well. If everyone is moving up, both physically, like I'm saying, materially, but also spiritually, that's obviously what we want, right? We're moving towards a certain direction. All right, let's kick it with blessing 10. Ben, do you want to open it up for us?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah, what's up, Kirk? Okay, I'm just gonna ask Stephen if he's doing well and if he had a few good weeks.
Okay.
Someone's echoing. Am I echoing? Who's echoing?
I'm not sure.
I'm putting.
Is it you echoing? No, it's no. I mean, it's not. It's not. It's okay. You don't hear it here. Steven, it might be on your end. If you have to use.
Let me turn off my mic.
Thank you.
You'll let us know if you're still hearing echoing going on over there in the comments. Okay. תקע בשופר גדול לחירותנו ושא נס לקבץ גלויותינו וקבצנו יחד מארבע כנפות הארץ. ברוך אתה אדוני מקבץ נדחי עמו ישראל. You want to take it away, Benny boy?
Yeah. Sound the great shofar for our liberty, and raise a banner to gather our exiles, and gather us together from the four corners of the earth. Blessed are you, Adonai, gatherer of the dispersed of his people Israel.
Right. Okay. So this blessing, right? Once we get to this point, right? There's actually a significant. Sorry, what'd you say? Okay, you're droiding on us right now, so you'll let us know if you get that fixed. So there's a transition over here. There's pretty significant, part of the structure of Amidah. Up until this point, we're really talking about the individual and like obviously our own needs, even though in the last blessing, again, we were talking about all of Israel. Obviously, we're always keeping that in mind, and even the nations of the world. Nevertheless, the focus was like about my, my material balance of how I do all those stuff, but that's talking about me personally, right? My own struggles that I'm dealing with as well in my inner life. But now there's really there's like the framework is expanding, and we're not talking about as individuals, we're talking about a nation, right? Was like we said, sound a great shofar for our freedom over here. And it's not just like another request, really. This is a request for like a historical transformation, really. We're asking that we're not that just that we're redeemed, but all of Israel is redeemed together. And really, we should then ask at this point, right, which is like, what is redemption? I spoke about this a little also with Jacob on the stream yesterday, but I would say we tend to think that redemption is like, in vague spiritual terms, where like it's like there's like a mystical awakening, or it's a return to God. It's like an inner transformation. But the sources that we have, the Jewish sources, are actually pretty precise. Like the Tanakh and Chazal, when they talk about Geula, right, redemption, it's a very concrete meaning. It means like a release of like legal subjugation. Right. If you're an individual, that means like I'm freed from like ownership, basically like a slave out of bondage. Right. And if we're talking about a nation, then a nation really means something that's like much more radical. Right. We're talking about like political independence. And this is also why Chazal, right, our sages tell us, right, that there's no difference between this world and the days of Messiah, except one thing, and that's really that we're not going to be ruled by other nations, only by ourselves. And I'm sure, like at this point, Jacob would like to say that like we're a vassal state to America, and obviously there's some truth to that as well. But with regards to the here and now, when it says Tekah b'shofar gadol b'chayutenu, we want to hear the shofar. Again, we're not asking for a mystical experience. We are asking for really the restoration of like the national sovereignty. And the reason is, again, we have to understand between freedom and like liberty over here, which is like there's a distinction over here. When we say chofesh in Hebrew, or let's say liberty, I guess, is or the freedom to do whatever I want, or and then like I'm removing all my external limitations, and obviously that comes with the danger because then I could be enslaved to, like you're right, my own impulses, so to speak. But cherut, right, like true freedom is not external freedom, right? It's really there's like an inner alignment, and this is one of Jacob's greatest hits, right? He loves talking about how it really means being faithful to who you really are, right? Chazal learned this from the pasuk charut laluchot, and they teach us don't say charut as an engraved, rather say cherut, say freedom, right?
This is when he's talking about.
Sorry, what you said?
This is when they're talking about the 10 Commandments, right?
The 10 Commandments, right? Like the 10 Commandments are engraved. Thank you, Ben. Are engraved on the stone, right? Don't like another level of reading is not cherut in the word as an add just one letter yud, and it really reads as freedom. And then our rabbis say, right, right? A person is only truly free once he deals with the Torah, meaning he's connected to his inner truth, right? The commandments are not limiting, they're actually freeing because they allow me to actually express and understand who I really truly am. And this is, if you're applying this to like a nation, right? Because we're not talking about the individual. I'm not just asking to be freed from oppression. I'm asking to become who we truly are as a people. And that could only happen if, like, on the ground, that could only happen. Jacob and I disagree with this, but I don't understand how. It could only happen politically. Only when you actually if you're politically independent, right? Because as long as another nation defines us, right, our identity is actually distorted and our expression is incomplete. And that's why when I say, like, there's an element to true about Israel still being influenced by America and things like that. And that's why our expression is incomplete. And that's why I'm very happy that, I won't even get into that conversation, too political. But again, when we say, when we're asking, we're not saying free us, Hashem. We're saying, let us be ourselves in a true sense of freedom.
Right. I mean, that's why the Exodus is such a mirroring of this, and so important for us to even understand what we're thinking of when we're thinking about Geulah, because it seems like, and what you just said is what happened in Exodus to an extent, right? Is a Geulah of a nation being formed through the Exodus of Egypt. But there as well, there's a lot of discussion about the fact that it's not that Moses is asking or God is telling Moses to tell Pharaoh to free the Israelites. It's telling him to let him serve God, which is the enabling constraints, which is another.
Right, let these people express themselves the way they need to express themselves right now.
Right.
That's why it's really a message to the whole world. And again, that's why we go back to this often, but putting on your phylacteries in the morning, and it's being between your eyes, or you like to think about it, in other cultures as the third eye. But the idea is to always have on top of our mind the idea of humans being free in that sense and having that freedom that we're talking about right now. And that freedom and that expression and us made in God's image leads to how it should relate to global warming and education and war and all those things. But obviously that is the mindset that you have to have if you are actually to redeem the world.
And I was going to say,
a high GDP requirement.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's the number of births per person as GDP goes up?
In Israel.
Does Israel have that stat? Like, as the GDP went up, did the birth rate go down?
It sounds like a research question.
Well, no, I'm just saying. What are we doing?
I think Kezi is literally researching it as you.
I'm checking right Let's see.
Well, I would think birth rate would be a known thing, but maybe not.
It is. I think I've seen that it is a known thing where in Israel it goes up, uh, as opposed to the rest, to the majority of the world. And maybe it is. I think the implication, Stephen, right, is that when GDP goes up, probably the birth rate goes down in most cases.
Yeah, that
So
wouldn't be in Hashem's interest, right?
Yeah. So,
Generally, but of course we can't know. But it seems
Right.
like
So the answer is Israel breaks this rule, right? As our GDP rises, our birth rate does not fall.
So
And
yeah,
I
that's
believe,
big.
right.
Yeah.
So key factors: cultural, religious norms, strong pro-family values across society, very high fertility in Haredi and religious communities. Policy support, child allowance, subsidized child health care, IVF coverage, family. I would say about the IVF, it's 2 successful IVF coverages, as in you could go through multiple of them, which cost tens of thousands of dollars. And if they're all fails, like they'll keep on doing it until you have 2 successful IVFs coverage, which is insane. Family-friendly labor policies, national historical factors, post-Holocaust demographic consciousness, ongoing identity and security considerations, social structure, early marriage age relative to Europe, strong extended family support system, and it goes on and on. High GDP, high birth rate. Israel is one of the only developed countries where fertility remains near replacement or above. It's actually above. It's
That should be talked about more, I would think.
For sure. It's 2.9 to 3.
Wow. Yeah. So that's double. That's
correct.
double the rest of the developed world.
OECD average fertility is 1.5, correct? Almost double. And the GDP per capita in 2024 was $54,000.
Because as we increase our borrowing, because our money is no longer tied to a real substance, right? As we keep on borrowing, then the return gets less and less as there's fewer and fewer people.
I mean, this brings us into the whole petrodollar conversation right now. I'm like, that charade is only going till while the world is playing with this thing called the monopoly money of America. When that goes belly up, and Donald Trump is obviously aware of that. Kirk, you wanted to say something?
I just want to say that this is also related to the idea of positive liberty versus negative liberty. And the philosopher who came up with the idea in modern times is Sir Isaiah Berlin, who is himself of Jewish heritage. And it's the idea that basically there's freedom from and freedom to. And Judaism emphasizes that freedom to is freedom to actualize yourself in the face of God.
Oh, very good. Very nice. Thank you.
So one thing just to also emphasize is that this also reflects the Amidah itself, what we just talked about, where we're talking about where the first blessing was the Chonen Dat, right? It was about what do we have their understanding?
The first blessing in this portion, right? The first blessing is the fathers, the avot.
Right, in the portion, I don't know how we call it, requests, or is to have an understanding of the framing, right, of what you're looking for, what you need, or what Vervaeke will call like the salience landscape, or the value from which you see the world. And then we talked about the material ability for you to do that. If we skip to the last bracha, the last blessing that we talked about, which is the blessing of the year. And that is what we're just talking about now, kind of allows us to move up and to upgrade our spiritual growth and redemption, ours and the people around us.
I agree.
I've had many conversations. It's just interesting because I've had many conversations about this with people, about this realization of the fact that when you see the world, I don't know if I'll be able to connect it, so it might sound unconnected, but the fact that when you see the world, you don't just see the world and then kind of figure out what you need to do, or what the facts kind of give you. The facts kind of give you the information on what you need to do. You need to go through that first blessing, right? Which is to really understand, like have the value system or be intentional about it. You need to go through that process, which here is exemplified by a request. But just in general, it's just something that you need to be aware of, and only then can you even perceive the world and what you need.
Ultimately what you're saying is like you got to, in this simulation, what is the operating system you're deploying? Right? Like, what are you? How are you participating in this world? And without first aligning yourself and knowing, like, to be able to discern, to be able to understand, right? There's no point of sort of moving on to the next step.
Right. The problem is that I think the people that don't have that terminology, if it is correct, to just be in a humble position, if the theory that we are working from is correct, and then I think what people are potentially missing, is that they don't understand that you are operating on an OS that you are taking on, as opposed to operating on completely like that you are the OS. Like that your ego is the OS, and that you make the decision based on what you see, and you can kind of collect things and put them together. But there's no awareness, and because there's no awareness, there's no shoftim and shotrim, right? You don't understand that whatever you're consuming or wherever you're taking it from, it influences.
You don't have proper filters either.
Yeah, so it's kind of a hodgepodge.
I know. I think, like I said, I think that's the difference also, like with those different freedoms of just assuming everything's open, to freedom being really to being able to better understand yourself, right? Looking into the Torah and understanding that that's how I could understand myself. And only once I understand myself properly do I know what to ask for, how to ask for those things. Mm-hmm. So who is blowing this shofar? Who is blowing this shofar? The verse is being derived from a verse in Isaiah, V'haya bayom hahu v'yitka b'shofar gadol. I don't remember exactly what I think that's in, I can't remember what chapter it's in. But 1 second, let's just be fair. What chapter is it in? Kav Zayin, 27:13. והיה ביום ההוא ייתקע בשופר גדול, ובאו עובדים בארץ אשור, והנידכם בארץ מצרים, והשתחוו להשם בהר הקודש. Very famous song as well. But anyway, so there it says yitaka, right? It will be sounded, right? So who is blowing this shofar? Is God blowing this shofar? Are we blowing the shofar? Who is this person that Isaiah is talking about, that the verse is alluding to? Who is blowing this shofar? Rabbi Tzadok Milublin, a very, very, very interesting rabbi and chassid, he gives a very profound answer that in the future, it will become clear ultimately that God and Israel are one unified reality. This is an idea that's also seen inside the Zohar. This is obviously a very dangerous idea, right? What does that mean? That like we are one? You could also understand where, even some of this also has to do with the mysterion of Christianity as well. These ideas of, how to perceive Jesus as Israel, or what does that mean that it's all one? But there is a sense of here that God, Israel, and the Torah even are one unified reality, meaning that whatever Israel is doing and its intentions are God's, and whatever God is doing are Israel's intentions. And at that level, right, the distinction really collapsed. So the pasuk doesn't really specify who's blowing the shofar, because at that stage, the question itself sort of disappears. There's a unity that like, there's a call out and there's a shout out to each other. There's like this beautiful dance. Now, as far as our reality right now, we're not in that place, obviously. It's not clear that we are all one. So we're praying in our pray here that we use the words Kabbalah Shafar Gadol, as in God is the one acting over here. He is the one blowing, right? Yeah. So again, the source is alluding to this higher point when there's this beautiful integration. Currently, we realize we're not in that place, so we're asking God to call out. But this obviously could create a misunderstanding as well, which could be quite dangerous, right? Which is like a passive redemption, right? Some people will understand this now to mean, I talk about our good friend Jacob, Yacobi Mugatu, that we're not supposed to act, right? That the redemption must come from only God and only passively, right? He is the one blowing the shofar, and we are just waiting to one day hear it. And therefore, Bar Kochba was wrong, and Rabbi Akiva was wrong, and the Zionist movement is also wrong, because God, right, will do what he wants, when he wants, But I would say that the text strongly really rejects this idea. And when we
Wait,
say
so
the
you
phrase,
have, Khadija, just a second.
please.
Because you were talking about, there's two ideas here. The first one is, I gotta say, I don't know if I need to think about it. It kind of feels a little, I don't know if I feel comfortable with that idea. I don't know what that
Talk
means.
to me.
No, it's just the implications of it and I don't know, it just doesn't, I don't know, something I need to think about it, but I just wanted to point that out.
Well, just tell me what you want to like double click on over there.
Well, I don't necessarily want to double click on that, honestly, because double clicking on it, it just fleshes it out more. And I don't think it might be too dangerous to even go into. So I actually prefer not to dive into it without thinking about it further. But then there's another idea that you're saying about the passive redemption. I think that's a separate idea.
The passive redemption, I'm saying the if we look at the verse, right, it's Kaba Shafar Gadol, and not the verse. I'm saying if we're looking at the actual text in the prayer itself, right, it's not we're not being passive. It's a request for alignment, right? We're actually asking Hashem that what the prophet is describing, that a shofar will be sounded, right? So that should happen through, we want that unity of God and Israel. And
but did that unity exist with Moshe, right? Moshe has migono, right, from his throat, the words of God, right? But we don't talk about unity there in that sense, so that's why I feel uncomfortable.
Oh, listen, I'm giving you Rav Tzadok Milu. First of all,
right.
I'm with you that it's dangerous. This is not a Chezi idea. This is a rabbi, like a respected rabbi's idea.
I know, but you mentioned it at the top of the, that was the first thing you mentioned. So maybe put it at the bottom. And
sure, I accept that. But I'm saying when he's talking about, I'm saying that sure.
Yeah.
The fact that they're what, but I would say though, I'm connecting other verses to this as well, which is Shuvah Elai v'Ashuvah Lechem, right? Return to me and I'll return to you. There's this constant das, right? Where this is a partnership ultimately, right? When Israel awakens, God awakens with them in that sense. And that's why it's being passive, right? Is here, let's think about it differently. I'll bring
definitely agree. Yeah. I mean, I understand the passive, like, but there's definitely somewhere there's definitely the distinction between being active. Like you can be active and one with God, but
think about the shofar though, right? So think what our boy, the great eagle, says. What the Rambam Maimonides says about the role of the shofar, right? He says it's a wake up call. He says, "Ubu yishanim me shenatchem," right? Wake up. Right. So this is about the days of awe, but the idea is that when we say Kaba Shofar Gadol, right? When we're saying this, we're saying, God, awaken us, shake us out of this exile consciousness. Like we can't return to you if we don't feel like this urge to to also sort of reach out. Like, and because there's this partnership, if we hear your shofar and we respond with our shofar, so you could respond with your shofar, right? You could have like if you throw in a pool or a lake, you throw in a rock, a pebble, right? You create these ripples. And as they go further out, they become weaker and weaker and weaker. However, in theory, you could throw one, and as one of them is starting to end, you throw another one, and then you throw another one, and then you could create these loops that keep on sort of powering themselves. So we're asking sort of for like this, again, and that's why I think about being passive is something that we need to be careful of. Now, I'll bring in Rav Kook over here just about the shofar. He has in a actually close to his death, he gave this speech, and there was a little thing called shofarot. But he talks about we say over here, it's a great shofar, right? It's great shofar. So what is the great shofar? So he says there's three different types of.
Can we define shofar?
Shofar is the ram's horn. So he's going to define. There's three different types of shofar. There's these trumpets. What are these? Well, not a trumpet again. What are these? The horn of Gondor. I'm just thinking about like Lord of the Rings. But these are different sounds of different kinds of awakenings of redemption. So the great shofar that we're talking about right now is really the ideal awakening, which is like a spiritual longing, like we're talking about right now, or at least the way I'm explaining it. And this is a desire to connect to Hashem. And again, like an idea from the Zohar of like, bringing the Shekhinah back out from the dust, right? This is not out of fear, and this is not out of pressure. This is out of like inner kedusha, out of inner holiness. And I would say like historically, you see that with the students of the Baal Shem Tov, or the students of the Gra, or the students of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, right? They came to Israel not to build a state. They came there to meet the Shekhinah. They came there to meet holiness. And this is like the highest form of redemption, right? They understood, they heard, they started hearing that sound already or early then, and they came over there. This practically, it is the ram's horn, and that's like the ideal choice to use as well. Now, take it away, Kirk.
I was just curious. So, is this also related to the idea that within the Jewish neshama or the Jewish soul, that there's an inclination to the Shekhinah, there's an inclination to holiness?
In the soul, there's, of course. I mean, we want to connect. I mean, your soul, your neshama, is part of chelek Elokam Mimal. It's part of God's spark.
But I thought that was for. Is that true for Noahide souls as well?
Depends who you're going for. As far as I'm concerned, yes. As far as, let's say, Maimonides is concerned, it would be yes. Like the Tanya goes into like a more dangerous discussion. You could see things like that also in Rav Nachman as well. But ultimately, if you search enough, you'll see the answer is yes. Yes, of course. Okay. The Noahide souls are fantastical as well. And also, if you're made in God's image, you also have your spark that you're connecting to, and your wavelength that you're connecting to as well, which is its own unique expression of God's holiness.
It's hard to imagine the degree to which Israel would have to be attractive to have all of the exiles want to willingly return and do that on their own impetus. Like what would Israel need to look like for Jacob to say, "Oh, I'm pulling up stakes"? And it seems to me like this passage is requiring simply that the state is so good that no one will be able to resist the return.
I have to say, before Chesdi goes into it, because obviously he's more biased. I don't think we're that far. I mean, Israel already has more people, more Jews than anywhere else, I think.
Almost. I mean,
almost in the U.S.
But this is not a majority thing. This is an everybody thing.
No, it's true. But I think, at least from the way I hear about it, you do. It's not that far, I would think. Even though there is definitely a significant gap, but it's less necessarily. Again, before Chezi goes into it, and you have a much more detailed answer. I think one thing to consider is that it's not only the attractiveness of Israel, but the unattractiveness of everywhere else. like today, some people make jokes, right, about like some places could be less attractive. In Israel, you might feel safer, even though there's rockets all the time.
But that doesn't seem how the passage reads. The passage reads.
Well, maybe not the passage. I'm giving you my.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No.
So first of all, you A, good question. B, Ben, good answer, and you also hit another point. If you don't mind, I want to just flesh out the shofar idea, the three shofars. And then
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Not at all. It's only elevating the conversation. Truly. So we said there's the first shofar, right, which is the spiritual shofar. Why I'm coming? I'm hearing that sound. I want to be part of it. I want to be in Israel. There's there's like this medium shofar, right, which is the national awakening, right? This is not spiritual in the same way. This is like a healthy nationalism. This is a desire to live like a normal life and not be persecuted. And this is what I would say is secular Zionism, right, which is still valid and it's still important, but it's not this highest level, right? And I would say a medium shofar is also made out of other kosher animals. It's just not the ram. Now there's also the small shofar, which is a forced redemption, right? Which is the lowest level. And this is what you were alluding to, Ben. There's suffering, there's persecution, there's exile pressure, and we don't want that, obviously. And I would say history also shows that if we ignore the higher calls, right? Like the Baal Shem Tov and the students of the Baal Shem Tov and these other, they moved, they didn't need that. They decided to come because they felt the calling. And there's the nationality move, but if we ignore the higher calls, we'll be forced by lower ones, as we see by the Holocaust, as we see by other things that reality pushes you in that way. Now, I'm still gonna get to your question, though, but I wanna attack it from a different. I want to answer it from a different perspective. So 1 second, I'll try to. Okay, yeah. I would first say, like, again, the blessing becomes actually a little even like more precise over here. Like, what are we actually asking for? We're not just asking again for redemption. We're asking for that redemption should come from like the highest motivation. And this is also what you're talking about, sort of, Stephen. Like, I don't want it from fear, and I don't want it from nationalism alone. I want it from this deep spiritual awakening. But how does that happen? So it says over here, Ve'sa-nes, right? And raise a banner to gather our exiles, right? So when we say to raise a banner, a nes, right? This banner, like a flag. So, a flag, what does it do? It creates an identity. It creates a direction. It creates like unity. And that's what we're asking for, that God creates a center that draws us together, or more deeply, that we no longer need to draw our identity from outside cultures, right? But from ourselves. And this is what I call like the Israel is now a part of this. We are the nation of Israel rediscovering itself in its land, right? And you're coming from Moroccan and French and Syrian and Iranian, and like seeing Jacob and his Iranian conversation right now, and then seeing Ben, and then seeing me, as you're seeing also the world cultures in a certain sense also discuss between themselves through our prism though. But if we truly want to be ourselves, then we want to be doing that here. We want to be from ourselves. We want to be speaking about that identity. Now, there's these two dimensions also of this redemption, which there's two parallel ideas, right? We talk about cherutenu, right, which is our liberty, and we also about giliotenu, from our exiles. So we have a cherut, like we said, which is like this political independence, and we have kibbutz galiot. We have this physical return as well. Now, Chazal has a debate. The Talmud has a debate between Ben Zoma and the other sages. Like, why are we coming back to the land? Is it because of the political element, or is it because of like the coming back to the land, like, which is primary, but both ultimately are necessary. And this is, as you see over here, it also says v'kamtsenu yachad, right? Gather us together from the four corners of the world. So there's also like you have to put on your sociology hat here for a second. When it says together, it's not. We have to realize that the first group that comes is going to shape the society ultimately, and later groups that come in are going to clash with that, right? Since Israel is scattered in many different places, and this ultimately creates like ethnic tensions, which we've obviously felt in Israel, right? So you have these cultural tensions as well. So we're asking that this happens as much as possible together in a condensed time, so this preserves unity. We want the experience also to happen together, that like you suddenly have this melting pot of all these people thrown together. I would even say, unfortunately, like you did have like a very European Ashkenazi start to the country, and there were still clashes with that. Thank God it's becoming more and more difficult to know in Israel right now because of so many mixed couples of Sephardi and Ashkenazi and Ethiopian, and it's all turning into this beautiful color of mocha and a beautiful tapestry. But and I still didn't forget.
Yeah, well, I would think that that's the banner idea, right? The banner idea is that you've given up your cultural banner to this sort of meta banner, right?
Yeah,
this
correct.
is something that's above and beyond. But it's also the four corners of the earth, and I think you should like of the earth, right? This is a physical return. This isn't entirely a spiritual return. The spiritual return requires a physical return. I mean, that's correct. I mean, I'm not saying this is a very known thing, right? But it shouldn't be. Yeah, I think the of the earth should be said loud as well.
So let's touch upon that, right? So he ends with the blessed you Adonai, a gatherer of the dispersed of his people of Israel, right? Again, so this physical thing that he's bringing in these dispersed people. Now, again, our main man Maimonides, he writes that the Messiah will rise and he's going to restore the kingdom of Malchut David, the kingdom of David, and he builds a temple and he gathers the exiled Israelites. Now, people have asked that it's a very curious or puzzling order, right? Like, since building a kingdom, like you said, and the temple requires first the gathering of the people, but Maimonides is really trying to distinguish between exiles and those who are truly sort of dispersed, right? And first the Messiah rules over the gathered exiles, and afterward God gathers the truly distant from the corner of the world, right? So there's these two stages. There's the galuyot, right? The exiles. Exiles are people that are in exile, but we use the term exile because they know they're in exile, right? So they have this awareness of who they are and their identity in a certain sense. Then there's the nidachim, the dispersed. Those are the ones who are lost. And so again, the process is to first gather the connected, then recover those who are lost. And here this gets into a conversation of Judah and Ephraim, right? There's deep historical divide, right? Historically, Israel, the kingdoms are split into two kingdoms, the northern tribes, Ephraim, and the southern tribes are Judah. And Judah had the spiritual focus, and Ephraim, the son of Joseph, also, like we said about Egypt, that he was like the economical, the invisible hand of Joseph, so to speak, in Egypt, right, is national and a material focus as well. Now, again, we said both are essential, but when they're separated, then each really becomes incomplete. And the failure of Ephraim was, again, he was strong materially, but weak spiritually. And, as a result, you see like a collapse under a foreign nation. The best example of this, and you could also probably catch some of this later on in David's Bible study when he gets there, but is Ahab's his false compassion, really, right? When King Ahab, right, he is sparing the life of Ben-Hadad, he's the king of Aram, and he says, like, why would you kill him? He's my brother. Now, what is he thinking? That he's my brother because we both participate in idolatry, right? That's why we're the same. So why would we fight each other if we participate that way? And again, the problem with that is that's not true compassion. That's really reflecting like a loss of moral clarity, really. And you see that in the world as well, specifically in the last few wars. And again, this is the northern tribes were influenced by the surrounding nations. They lost their unique identity because of that, and their sense of their mission even. And now Judah, its strength is obviously spiritually strong, and he survives the exile, and that's how we're called Jews today. And we're not called Israelites anymore. But he lacks the national vitality of actually how to do that. So in modern reality, though, Rav Kook talks about this, it's just an idea to explore that, like, in Israel today, again, that splits happen. You have the religious in Israel, which are Judah, and you have the secular in Israel, which are Ephraim. But what we're lacking is this true synthesis. And this goes back to what your question is, like, when are people going to come? So what's the final vision? The final vision is unity, right? The goal is not ultimately to, for religion alone or nation alone. It's a unified people. And I would say a good example of this, and this is what I'm thinking about for you, Stephen, right now, is the Bnei Menashe, the sons of Menashe, a lost tribe that came back, right, from India, was recognized by Israel as Jewish according to the law of return, but required to do a conversion according to Jewish halakha, right? So this is a very interesting distinction that's really, if you notice, it reflects up here the difference between Israel and Judah, right? There's a national belonging, and that's why you could come back to the land, versus the halachic identity, which is the Jewish identity. So ultimately, they will unite. And this is obviously what Ezekiel's prophecy is, that they're going to take a stick from Joseph and a stick from Judah, and I'm going to put them together. So there's different levels of interpreting that verse, but the way I see it, and I'm very happy to interpret it on multiple levels. But
right, I think that there's a great sign of hope that you're missing completely, though, and that's that there are some out here in Edom or in Seir who are hearing the shofar, right? I mean, there's this Noahide thing that's happening, and I'm part of that. Is that I'm in some way being gathered, and I absolutely feel that. So I don't think that your focus on just the tribes of Israel, I think, is, and then you mentioned India, which brings me, that's kind of where I was going to go. It's going to say that, out here in Edom as well, at the very far end of where it's possible, the shofar is being heard, right? So that's another thing that's not talked about. I think you could expand that, and because I don't know what proportion of the Noahides would agree with what I just said, but I can't believe that it's not a few. And we want to, we very much want to be included in this discussion.
So first of all, thank you for expressing that. It's super important that you do that. And I'm sorry if you didn't feel as seen when I was expressing that. But let me clarify.
Oh, no. That has nothing to do with what you just said. That's a 6-month generalized feeling. And it's not bad. I'm not feeling bad. I'm just letting you know that there's a source of hope in this, that whereas I'm saying, well, what level does this have to be for everybody to come? What I'm saying is that the sound is getting out. And so, right, it's getting out to the end, right? It's getting out to Edom. So
Well,
that's something.
I
The
mean,
fact that I'm sitting here is given where I was 3 years ago, is insane.
so you're preaching to the choir. You being over here, the fact that we're having this conversation, that Kirk is here as well, right? Right. This is bananas. This is nuts. This to me is very much why I do feel that we are in biblical times, specifically in the last chapters of the Bible. And the fact that you hear that shofar only makes sense, because as we are now building our identity, I would say, and over the last 70 years, as we're every proper orientation or proper block that's happening in Israel that allows us to, as the world sees us, we are making our own shofar sound. This goes back to that shofar sound allows there to be a shofar sound back from God into the world itself. And I would say some people even like, that sound, right? Which to some people could sound angelic, right? There's also some people that can't stand classical music as well. And to them, that sounds very disturbing, right? You can also see how anti-Semitism, right? Philo-Semitism, there's frequencies over here that some are hearing as beautiful and some are hearing as very, very problematic. And like I mentioned this in a different conversation about the name of Messiah, which is the Talmud says, like, the Messiah comes when you're not ready for it, right? For some people, it's like a gift. Some people, it's like a scorpion bite. And so like you hearing this sound, of course, should be a signal that, yes, there is something happening. Yes, there is a calibration that is required by you. And it means looking around and seeing. Now, I think that the Israel's tuning fork, so to speak, there's still a lot of vibration over there. And, that's what we're figuring out right now. And that's a whole political discussion. But like I was saying in this prayer over here, there's clearly a very strong national element to that. And listen, it's very difficult for me with Jacob. And that's why I really try to frame it as Zionism is just like the medium shofar, right? It's not the end all be all. We obviously want the great shofar to be heard, but that's like one of those ripples I was talking about in the pool. Like, and my call to Jacob is come and create more ripples. Like allow it to amplify the shofar voice. Allow it to be like let's create that ram horn shofar that we could really rate that sound. And there's different analogies I could use, right? Like removing Bibi Netanyahu as a Saul figure and bringing in a David figure, right? We want to have someone that like we're looking for something else. There's a lot of challenges over there, but all those challenges, why the Noahide movement itself has been, I think, over the last X years has been growing is because, again, once we know ourselves properly, we could start giving our universal message, right? We could start wearing our universal name, which is Jeshurun. And once we're doing that, then it's open season. Then it's the house of prayer for all nations. Then the expectation, Stefan, is that you and I are drinking wine here in Israel together. And we're walking together to the temple. And then we realize like, oh, 1 second, Kirk was drinking too much. He's passed out. We got to go back and get Kirk and bring him with us. He's also going to be there. And Paul Vanderklay and the whole gang. And I would say again, in my vision, there's an identity of a Christian in some sense that is still preserved. And there's an identity of a Muslim that's still preserved. And there's an identity of a Buddhist that's still preserved. While again, we're talking about an iOS right now. While it requires proper understanding and proper orientation, but I think all of us go back. And I mean, there's verses that talk about this as well, that people will come up to the temple, learn from their ways, and then go back to their, as in like, you can now participate your thing in your culture and your experience. Come 3 times a year. Let's have these beautiful temple estuaries, so to speak, where we could all gain and bring in this amazing sense and music and sound and all these different layers where we could all connect on. And then go out and continue rectifying the world.
Yeah, and like for example, I go to an Orthodox shul and I daven every Shabbos and I wear a talit there, and the rabbi lets me wear a talit, and I have my relationship there. And I've noticed that in general, when I in Jewish communities that I've told I'm a Noahide, they are very welcoming and want me to be part of the journey, so to speak.
So I'm again like listen, this leads. Well, let me stop for 1 second and just say, Ben, I think we're done with this this blessing though for today. So
Yeah.
obviously,
Cool. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I will just say I usually don't. I don't. Let's say I'm not active in like conversation around the discussion about Noahide and all that. All that. I would just say that I enjoy being part of the conversation and reading about it. I find it inspiring for Stephen and Kurt for sure. Like inspiring, I find you inspiring is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I probably need to go. But I just wanted to say that, and that's it.
Yeah.
Everybody,
thanks, Ben.
I did actually. I actually did have a
comment about this. We have our own temple to walk to together one day, but it's not a place. So first of all, this goes to the verse, right? In Hebrew, Banita Mishkan v'shachanti betocham. Right? Build me a tabernacle, and so I could dwell amongst them. Tabernacle is singular. Dwell amongst them is I'm blanking on the word right now. Singular and Kirk. What am I blanking at right now?
plural.
Plural. Sorry, plural. And so the idea, like what our boy over here is referring to, Mr. Weeks, is that the temple. Well, I think it's important to have like there's an element to where the physical structure has its place. Obviously, the temple we need to be creating is also inside, right? The whole idea of in the Holy of Holies, in the most intense place, on top of the cherubs, there's nothing. That's also there to, aside from the whole symbolism it has against idolatry, right? There's no cherub rider on top. It also is to come to let you know that there's an empty space above the cherubs. We have to make an empty space inside us. We have to make an empty space inside, like create a little temple inside where we could create space for God as well. So there's a little echo though, by the way, Stephen. I think it's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I had to go to a different thing and it doesn't work. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I did have a question though. It's not related to the prayer study, but it is related to Jewish theology, if that's okay. Which is it compatible with Judaism to believe in an eternal universe?
In an eternal universe. Yes. I think so. Well, to a certain extent. I know that's a difficult question, a difficult answer, but I would say as far as our experience of reality is, then the answer is yes.
Okay. The reason I ask is so.
I'm saying what olam haba means and like the world to come and things like that. That's like a much deeper conversation, but like I see that sort of, but like I'll give you an example. In the blessing we just read, in the Sephardi version, it actually adds the word quickly inside as well. Now, while the process of redemption is a slow process, redemption itself is something that happens very, very quickly. And because it's sort of redemption is out of time, and if it's out of time, above time, it's already faster than time in that sense. So the ultimate redemption, or not the redemption, the world to come, that is a reality that I can't really speak about. No one can really speak about, but I sort of see that outside the realm of the discussion that we're having. And that's why, for all intents and purposes, with regards to the universe you're asking about, I think we have to participate with the laws of nature.
Yeah. Well, so the reason I ask is because, so do you know who the theoretical physicist Lawrence Krauss is?
Yeah.
So Lawrence Krauss says that I've been reading his book, A Universe from Nothing, and what he says is that before space-time and matter existed, there's a non-spatiotemporal quantum vacuum. And what this would do is it would make it so that way you don't have to have a temporal variation of the cosmological argument for God, because you could say, well, the thing that's eternal is the quantum vacuum, which gave rise to space-time. But then you could say that instead of the Aristotelian prime mover argument, you still can go for a Leibnizian contingency argument, which is that it relies on a hierarchy of causation where God is a necessary being. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's just sort of taking me to the edge of my understanding on these topics. So, well, not the edge of my understanding of the topics, but basically, yes. The short answer is that does make sense. Which totally makes sense that you are dealing with these questions right now, and I mean this. First of all, this is true about anyone, but this is also very apropos for your age and your time at life right now. So I would say definitely continue. As our name is to wrestle with God. Or Maimonides actually has a great quote. In English, it's a great quote. I want to read it out to you. I think you'll appreciate it. Kirk, considering what you just said. Where is the quote? Okay. My son, as long as this was a letter to his son, Yosef ibn Akin. He was a judge in Yemen, roughly also 1,000 years ago. My son, so long as you are engaged in the studying of the mathematical sciences and logic, you belong to those who go around about the palace in search of the gate. When you understand physics, you have entered the hall, and when you master metaphysics, you have entered the inmost palace. Okay, so
yeah, I was going to say that the phrase "before the universe existed," there was this is well, what is this before thing you're talking about? And this is nothing that it's complete. It's just speculation at that point.
Well, so when I say before, I mean not in a temporal sense, but in a sense of ontologically prior. So the way Krauss phrases it is that there's this quantum vacuum which is not spatiotemporal, and this is ontologically prior to space-time.
Sorry, 1 second. I was looking for Okay. I want to jump to this for a second. This is referring to Jesus as person, I think. Is he saying the diaspora? I'm not sure. You could expand.
He means C.W. Weeks. He's talking about C.W. Weeks.
Oh, I got you. Because C.W. Weeks changed. Okay, I got you, because C.W. I got you. Sorry about that. I'm slow. The hope is there, even if it's to come alongside one another for a time on the way to quite distinct mountaintops. It is the ascent we have in common, so mutual aid is possible and welcome.
I could. Can I just add a thing to that?
Please.
Is that when I was saying before about the chauffeur, the way that and this is just me, but the way that I feel as though I'm hearing it is from Zion, but off of Seer, reflected off of Seer, right? So it's not that I'm looking for the temple on Zion. It's that I'm seeing it reflected. I'm seeing a portion of it or a piece of it. I hate to use the word portion because he uses it so much, but I'm seeing sort of the piece that I can see off of it, and that it's almost as if all of us together and all of the way wherever our reflections come from. Maybe for the Jewish tribes, it's a direct link, but for the rest of it's some sort of reflection off of something. And I see it as seer just because of the Edom angle, but that might be what CW is getting at.
So I think, and that's great, which is, what verse is it again that Esau tells him that? Here you go. Okay, so they meet up, the brothers meet up, they give each other a hug, and then he tells him, Esau tells him, come, let's go, Jacob. And Jacob says, I got to do some stuff, go up ahead and wait until I come to Seir, right? And we're taught that like eventually the brothers will reunite. There's a beautiful teaching that when that a glimpse of seeing when the two brothers could unite, what it looks like. It's when Marcus Aurelius and Judah the Prince had their relationship together, and it said they were, like extremely, extremely close. And that's a place where Jerusalem and Athens and those ideas sort of come together. Now, you seeing that reflection and you seeing that thing, that's part of, I think, Esau, Edom, Seir maturing in its own sense, and yes, eventually we need to come together. So again, you using those terms is extremely meaningful to me. And ultimately, the brothers were both supposed to share the blessing, right? Jacob taking on both blessings. That's not that's not what it's supposed to be. And we also see how I was going to take Edom as the West, right? Its power and what it could do, right? It definitely works with Esau. We need to be obviously doing that together. So when that can happen, and you hearing some of that and seeing some of that, is how we could start closely coming together. So
it's funny because I tried so hard to not be Edom Seir. I tried. It's not like this was an inclination that I had. I didn't want to be that. Because look, you don't want to be from Edom if you're talking to a Jew, right? but yeah, I just haven't been able to resist that sort of image of how what that image actually is. Who knows? And I'm not pretending to know, but that it still seems to me after a year of contemplating this that I'm right back to the reflection off of Seir. So for whatever it's worth.
First of all, let's hope we don't just get our heads cut off in the end like he did. No, by the way, I would say you're wrong. That's what you wanted. You wanted the head to get cut off, and the head gets rolled in and stays in the tomb of the patriarchs. But that is, I'm saying, that's all the spirituality. That's all the elevated. That is the purified Esau, which finds its portion. So I'm saying, like, while it seems quite intense, I'm saying you are the head of Esau. I'm saying again, and we're using these terms in sort of a loose way, but for what they symbolize, like I think that's great. I mean, Esau is the example we have for one respecting his parents, right? That's the sage's go-to example of who exemplifies that, right? You're not getting that from internal; you're getting that from the outside, and wisdom from the outside is something that the Torah obviously recognizes. The fact that the Bible could be written in Greek is the recognition of, and this also relates to other verses, which is Japhet will sit within the tents of Shem, right? Which is as long as there's like a framework that inside it then could allow for the other nations of the world who are all chosen in their own way, right? In Hebrew, Zgula, the chosen nation, Zgula also means misugalut, what your capability is. Everyone has their own special capability. So again, I'm just using your like that light reflecting. I think our job is to, in that analogy, I'm using a mirror analogy right now, but definitely make sure that this mirror is properly clean, so we could reflect back to the nation of the world, so they could properly see their image the way we see their image, and they could fully manifest who they are. By the way, to CW Week's comment over here, I won't get into it. We don't need to ruffle feathers.
Well, I was also going to say that this is also connected. One of the things that Judaism, to my understanding, provides to the world is this idea that it's important to have values shared in the form of narrative or story, right? So the reflection of values is in the form of narrative. And so one of the things the Bible does, and this is sort of Peterson's point, as I understand, with integrating it with modern psychology, is that it's a collection of stories that help navigate and give wisdom. And so while the Bible is not just a storybook, it does have that value as well, if that makes sense.
I mean, the way he says it, I think is like it's a hyper truth.
Yeah, I'm not saying that everything he says about it is correct. I'm just saying that like the point about it being a story which communicates truths about like fundamental truths about the nature of reality and God and human nature is true.
Yeah, I agree. Ultimately,
Yeah, and like aren't there forms of therapy in psychology known as like narrative therapy and like art therapy I've heard is
yeah,
related to this?
my wife is an art therapist as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and many of the great figures in positive psychology were of Jewish heritage, like Viktor Frankl and the founder of cognitive behavioral therapy, Aaron Beck, was of Jewish heritage, right? Positive psychology and Judaism, I think, go hand in hand.
I wanna. I'm jumping off for a second, and I don't know how aware you are of this, Stephen, but there's a verse which says that in Malachi, where it talks about that God loves Jacob and he hates Esau. However, our the Midrash has taught us already that Esau is in his root is loved ultimately, and like again that goes back to the head I was using. So
Yeah,
so
I
while we
understand
do-
all that. I
right,
understand all that.
okay, it's just it's
Yeah.
important for me to mention, and again it's very important, and this I have to deal with internally. Like Jews for 2,000 years were really like their mind. We've been in exile for so long. Relationships with Christians, relationship with Noahides. This is like even dealing with the country is difficult, right? Like we never had that. Like we weren't dealing with that kind of power. We weren't dealing with these kind of ideas. We didn't like saying building the shofar at the same time automatically. Like those sounds bring in the Noahides, bring in all these different questions that we're dealing with. I would even say how we're dealing with the Palestinians, right? Like it's. I think it's amazing that like after 2,000 years, you come back to your land and you have to deal with Ishmael living in it and knowing that you also have commandments of taking care of the foreigner in your land. Like that is a tension that Jews and Israel have to deal with, and we have to deal with it the right way. And like these are like that's why these are all to me like beautiful biblical data points that we're in it. We're very exciting times. I mean, psychologically, is basically soul care. It's not surprising me to the folks who have cared for souls a very long time would do well in therapeutic theory. Chazi is just to bracket my contribution as well, filtered through the chat until face to face, at least through the screen. And one day, as yourself, but in your home, yes, please God, please God. He's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say, so to Ethan's point here, I think what he's saying, if I understand this correctly, is that one of the reasons that Jews are often found among the founders of psychology and psychotherapy is because of the fact that that there's a strong emphasis in Judaism that there's not just a material world, that we have an immaterial soul that we should study, and psychology is just as valid as a discipline as physics.
So, I mean, ultimately, one second. I want to read this quote. Rich, am I writing it the right way? Yeah, here we go. How does he quote it over here? Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, here we go. In an interview on his 80th birthday, Jung said, "But do you know who anticipated my entire psychology in the 18th century? The Hasidic Rabbi Ber of Mezrich, who they called the Great Maggid. He was the most impressive man." Right? So Carl Jung does amazing work, and then he comes and tells you towards the end of his life that all of this is what was anticipated. Now, Hasidism and the Baal Shem Tov, the Zohar, a lot of that has to do with, obviously, there's a lot of psychological undertones over there. Yosef and I spoke about this a lot. Specifically, the Baal Shem Tov was doing something very deep. He was trying to rectify and solve and fix what was left from the tremendous messianic energies that were coming from Shabtai Tzvi and Natan Azati, his student. And that's always the problem with, that's always these two things. You have the tradition and you have a messianic impulse. And if they're not worked together, then obviously you have serious issues with that. And things could go astray. I would say, like, it may sound controversial, but like I would say Jesus is someone like that, which had obviously messianic force. But the question is it in the right frame? I see, even like a Ben Gurion like that, and I even see a Shabtai Tzvi like that. But like obviously things could completely go astray. I'll just note, because there's people out there, this is very different than Jacob Frank and the Franksists and the insanity, the sexual insanity these people are up to. But maybe I digress, or I'm going into irrelevant topics. Okay. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I say one last thing?
Yes.
So to CW's point, I think it's a great idea to have, like, what is this Christian diaspora, right? Because what is these Christians in exile? Because in a way it sort of defines what's going on in the TLC, right? It's a Christian diaspora, it's a Christian's exile, and it'd be interesting to see if that exile could be ended at the same time that the Jewish exile. Maybe it's all, if that started happening on the Christian side, that it'd be a good sign that it was a confluence in the way that we were talking about before. And it's funny because I belong to a Christian church, and I keep expecting to be exiled from it, but I haven't been. And so I don't know what it's. Maybe it's because I'm very new. So, but I've been able to hang on to, so I don't feel exilic, but in the way that CW does. CW has thought a lot about this, so it would be interesting to see that conversation.
I was writing myself some notes. Where did I write it over here? This is basically like my thesis. Well, not my thesis, but like the idea is that, and actually there was a good conversation between a rabbi in Israel that I really like and a Catholic priest, I think. But basically, the way I wrote it like this: a radical new approach, a non-Jewish okay, so perhaps Jews can help Christians rethink Jesus, not from the church doctrine, but from a Jewish perspective, right? This means, and obviously Jacob does a lot of this work, but seeing Jesus first as a Jewish human being, understanding him as in the historical Jewish context, not starting from the assumption that he's divine. And then obviously I speak about, like, before Vatican II and after Vatican II, which allows for some of this dialogue to happen, right? So from our perspective, right, Jesus does exist. He may have been a teacher with his followers. Obviously, we know what the theological claims that we reject. Now, and we also know the historical aspect, but this is the most important thing. Christianity took ideas meant for the entire Jewish people and applied them for one individual. And this goes back to what I said, that we have in our tradition that God and Israel are one. The nation of Israel, not an individual in Israel, or God and Torah and the nation of Israel are one. So again, Christianity took ideas meant for the entire Jewish people and applied them to one individual, Jesus. There are 4 roles from the Bible. We're supposed to be representative of God, children of God, bringers of redemption, and a prophetic nation. According to this view, these belong to the Israel nation. Christianity transferred them to Jesus. Now, there's, again, like a bold theory that Jesus is a symbol, right? There's a myth to it of the Jewish people. Like, he's a mythologization of the Jewish people, meaning the death of Jesus is the destruction of the Jewish nation, the temple destruction, and the resurrection is the rebirth of Israel, the modern state of Israel. And this is really presented as a reinterpretation of Christianity and a possible bridge between the religion. So obviously that's a very big ask from our Christian brothers and sisters, but I want them to sort of maintain a certain structure of Christianity but allow them to shift some of that understanding. And that's some of that light being reflected, so to speak. And that's obviously a very, very, very hard conversation to have. And again,
I would say,
I'm sorry.
I'd say it'd be much less of an ask from someone like CW than from a Catholic priest.
Sort of like how the New Testament itself is among the most important primary sources of the history of Judaism as we know it today. I mean, we have the Talmud, and we have so obviously that. I mean, and the same thing with Talmud and Jesus in the Talmud as well. Even though many people say that's not Jesus, and it's like an anachronism over there. So also as far as like the years, but we owe each other much indeed. So one second, this will be the quote we finish on. But where do I have this quote? Where did I keep this quote? And this is one of my favorite quotes. One second. This is by one of a very influential rabbi to me, Rabbi Manitou, right? The Great Wind, student of Rav Kook, rabbi of Rabbi Shirky. Okay, where is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's in here. By the way, just even like, and I mentioned this verse often. Also, the verse from Isaiah that there shall be a highway. Thus, there shall be a highway for the other parts of his people out of Assyria, such as there was for Israel when it left the land. Well, no, I actually cut the line over here, but it basically says, Israel, my people, Egypt, my people, Assyria, the work of my hand. And usually my people is only for Israel, but like everyone's considered people. Everyone's welcome to come back home, obviously. But that wasn't the verse I wanted to read. The verse I wanted to read was, one was there. Okay. Here we are. Okay, it's in Hebrew, but let's put it in our little chat. Oh, well, not your chat, but I'll just translate this. I hope CW is still here because I think he'll appreciate it. I sometimes reference this when I say brothers looking for each other in the field, but it's coming from this verse. If the Jews are Israel, then who are the Christians? It is clear that the existence of two Israel competing in their aspiration for universal peace is a conflictual reality, one that neither Christians nor Jews can permit to persist. We are dealing with the question of brothers seeking their brotherhood, just as the right hand and the left hand do not oppose one another, but are capable of joining together. We will not suffice with merely pointing out the questions that trouble us. Rather, we must, together, Christians and Jews, go and rediscover the roots of our tradition and identify both what separates us and what at the same time connects us, the mystery of Israel, the harmony of its limbs. So that has always been extremely meaningful to me. And to hear that from like a prominent Orthodox Jewish rabbi, he's getting that from Eliyahu ben Amazog, also a fantastic rabbi as well. But this really connects to what he said over here. We owe one another much indeed. And hopefully, slowly but surely, this is happening. Yeah, I think this is happening. I'm always very nervous to think about what like the Jewish presence in the TLC, what kind of ripples it has actually, like how big are ripples? Is it disturbing for people? Is it annoying for people? Like, you know, you don't want to be underground. On the other hand, I feel like it is like a safe place, a brave place to be able to speaking about that. I think it's like a very magical place that these conversations could even happen. Yeah. All right. Anyone listening? Any last questions?
I have a couple last questions, but I'll save them for another day.
Is it about economics or metaphysics or
Well, they're related partially to Jewish theology, but I'll save them for another day.
this is obviously true. We might not all be Israelites, but we all look to the Hebrew God. If it is the living creator God we seek to serve, I would just say we could all fall under the ancient name of the Noahides, which is the God-fearers, right? We are all the God-fearers. And inshallah, our Muslim brothers and sisters will also join the parade as well. May Hashem refresh our nefesh. Yes, may Hashem refresh our nefesh as well. Also, extremely, extremely important. Thank you for that. Eitan, which is Ethan's name, right? Which means strength, or being sturdy as well, is my nephew's name. And I hope you find stability, you find bravery, and you find strength in your day, specifically today, but in all your endeavors, sir. On that note, I bid you, gentlemen, adieu, and take care. I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, Hezi.
You're welcome, Dawn. Oh, I'm still streaming.